Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Long time no see. I know I've been MIA, but I've been getting my life together, which I'm sure a lot of you can understand. And I am trying to get back into the groove of YouTube, so hopefully, this will get the ball rolling. Now, the topic of today's video is going to be attachment styles. Now, for those of you who don't know, an attachment style is the way that you bond and connect to someone when you're in a romantic relationship. And these attachment styles are formed in childhood between the ages of 0 and 5. So by the time you're 5 years old, your attachment style has pretty much been planted within you, and it's going to set the tone for the type of people that you are attracted to romantically, and also the way you react when you're in a relationship. Now, there are 4 different types of attachment styles. One of them is healthy, the other 3 are not healthy, and they make for very dysfunctional relationships. So the healthy attachment style is secure attachment style, and then the 3 dysfunctional ones are anxious preoccupied attachment style, dismissive avoidant attachment style, and fearful avoidant attachment style. Now, I'm going to give a general overall description of each. That way you can identify your own attachment style if you don't know it already. This is just to identify your attachment style, and then in my next couple videos I'm going to get into details of each and how to change each. First up is secure attachment style. Now, like I said, secure attachment style is the only healthy attachment style. If you have a secure attachment style, you give and receive love quite easily. You are low maintenance when it comes to relationships. Like, you are attracted to people who can reciprocate the love that you give them. People with the secure attachment style are usually just they're not here for the dysfunction. Like, if things are going dysfunctionally, they'll usually like back out and go find like a more stable partner. So these are the people that pretty much had healthy childhoods. Their mothers and fathers or their caregivers nurtured them correctly, so they're able to bond with people in the correct manner. They have a very high self-esteem, they have a positive outlook on themselves, and they have a positive outlook on other people. So that's a recipe for a healthy relationship. They're able to bond and connect, but they're not dependent on their partner. So if that sounds like you, then you have secure attachment style. Congratulations. Only about 50% of the population actually have this attachment style. So yeah, only 50% of people even have the tools that enter a healthy relationship. And then there's the rest of us, the other 50%. So let's get into the dysfunctional attachment styles. So next up is the anxious preoccupied attachment style. Now, people with this attachment style, as the name clearly states, have a very anxious outlook on relationships. Like, their partners have to constantly be reassuring them that they like them and that they love them in order for them to feel safe. So if you have an anxious attachment style, more than likely you have a very big fear of abandonment. So you're constantly on high alert, thinking that your partner might run out on you or leave you. So this actually used to be my attachment style, and I say used to be, I'll explain later on how it actually changed. So I know this attachment style quite well. Let's say you're on the phone with your partner, right? And then they fall asleep. And then the next day, they don't text you good morning right away. You get really, really anxious. Like, oh my gosh, like, do they not like me anymore? Are they ignoring me? Are they out with someone else? Like, your anxiety goes through the roof whenever you're not being constantly reassured. And people with this attachment style tend to just be very like clingy, and their sense of self depends on the way their partner sees them. So it's like constantly checking your emails, constantly checking your texts, like seeing what your partner says, wanting to be on the phone all day with your partner, checking their social media back to back to back to see what they're thinking, or to get any clues or hints as of how they're feeling, if they would still like you, if they're cheating on you. It's like a bunch of, like I said, anxiety. And people with this attachment style also tend to become very jealous within relationships quite easily. And again, that comes from a fear of abandonment. And this jealousy even continues after the relationship is over. So even when a relationship is over, someone with an anxious attachment style is still going to be highly jealous and upset when they see their ex doing something that might involve another person. They might confront their exes still, like, what are you doing with so-and-so? And the ex is probably like, well, we're not together, so what are you questioning me? That comes from an anxious attachment style. The only way to calm down their anxiety when they feel like their partner is straying away from them is for their partner to reassure them, which, as you can probably guess that causes a lot of friction in the relationship, because that's a lot of pressure to put on, you know, someone else in a relationship to constantly reassure you, constantly talk you down, constantly remind you that you're loved. But it is possible to get with a partner that will do that for you. But the point being is that having a anxious attachment style is just it's stressful. It's very stressful because you're always on high alert and you can never really enjoy your relationship, you know? Next up is dismissive avoidant attachment style. Oh my goodness, we've all met people like this. So people with dismissive avoidant attachment style are very much not here for relationships. Like, they see relationships as not really a necessity. They are more comfortable by themselves. They feel very smothered within a relationship. Like, they don't want people to get too close because it feels like suffocating. And they have a tendency to just be closed off, very stoic. And the first sign of somebody trying to get too close, they're just like, They start to put up those walls, like, back up, like, don't, you know, they value their independence. They almost see emotions as like a weakness. So if they have a partner who is expressing themselves or expressing their emotions, they'll kind of like shut down and kind of get turned off, because they just see like affection and emotion. Like, I'm sure we've all met these type of people, like the closed off, emotionally unavailable person. Yeah, these people they're not here for relationships. But the crazy part is that subconsciously they are here for relationships. They just don't know it. People with dismissive avoidant attachment style, they do get into relationships because subconsciously they do want to connect and they do want love from people, but they just don't know it. Like, in their conscious brain, they think, okay, relationships, it'll get out of my face. But they'll tend to attract people with anxious attachment styles, because people with anxious attachment styles are so clingy and needy. It almost feeds the ego of somebody who has a avoidant dismissive attachment style, you know? They can come off as very cold-hearted, and they have things called deactivating techniques, which will, you know, distance them from intimacy. So sometimes they will withhold sex, like they don't want to really have sex all that often because they don't want to, you know, get too intimate. They tend to bury themselves in work, and just as a distraction, because they don't want to get too attached or too intimate with anybody. And also, these people tend to seek intensity outside of relationships. So a lot of people with this attachment style have addictions that they're battling. It could be anything, not just drugs. It could be gambling, or even be a workaholic. Like, they get their highs from other things outside of love because they're trying to avoid love. They don't want it. They want you to stay away from them. And one thing I noticed about people with this attachment style, oh my god, it drives me nuts. They do this thing called a delayed response. So when you're like expressing your emotions to them and you're like pouring your heart out to them, they'll get really, really quiet for a good like 2 minutes, and then they'll collect themselves, and then they'll give you a response. And basically they're doing that as a means, like I said, to push people away. Like, they don't want to connect or engage with your emotions, so they do the delayed response so that they can come up with a logical, like a more logical, safe response. Okay. And these are also the people that when you text them like a long paragraph, like expressing your feelings, they'll pick bits and pieces out of the paragraph to respond to. Oh my god, it drives me nuts. I was dating somebody with this attachment style, and it used to get him. I used to write like a long like paragraph of feelings, and he would just respond to one part of it, and I'm just like, what about the rest? What about the rest? And eventually I asked him. I pointed out to him, like, why do you do that? Like, why do you do that when I express my feelings? You only address one part. And he was just like, well, I just take the part that's safest and address that. And I was just like, that's so rude, but at the same time so interesting, right? It's interesting that people naturally have these ways of blocking off emotions. They sometimes don't even have a means of finding the words for their emotions. Like, they're disconnected from their partner's emotions, and they're disconnected from theirs. So they don't even know how to express themselves. So a lot of time you won't know that anything's wrong with them unless they get physically ill. Like, sometimes they'll get physically sick in order for their emotions to manifest somehow, you know? So yeah, these people tend to have a very high income because they are, like I said, they tend to be workaholics, but even though their income is usually high, their satisfaction is usually very low, like in terms of life. Like, they tend to be very unhappy. So just to throw out a few more signs of this type of attachment style, if you're dating someone who, like, they're fixated on an ex, like they idealize their ex, and they're just like, oh, my ex, like, no one can compare to them, and they're very closed off towards you, that person most likely has an avoidant, dismissive attachment style, because what they do is they will idealize an ex, even though the ex might not have been that great. They'll idealize an ex because it's their way of distancing you from them and not being intimate with you. Like, they use it as a coping mechanism. Like, their relationship with their ex could have been trash, complete trash, but in their minds, the ex was perfect only because it helps to create a wall between you and them. And another thing that people with this attachment style do is that they'll focus on their partner's petty shortcomings. Like, the littlest thing about their partner that's a little off, they'll be like, oh, see, this is why I can't do relationships. This is why. Like, they're pretty much overall, they're always looking for a way to emotionally distance themselves from their partners, which is like, why even get into a relationship in the first place then? But like I said, it's to feed their ego. If you've ever met anybody with a narcissistic personality disorder, then they fit into this category. But it's important to note that not everybody who fits into this category are narcissists. It just happens to be that narcissists fit into this category. Okay, so last up is fearful avoidant attachment style. This attachment style is a little bit confusing because it is a combination of the dismissive avoidant attachment style and the anxious preoccupied attachment style. People with a fearful avoidant attachment style, they know like the value of being in a relationship. They enjoy being in love and like close to someone, kind of like an anxious attachment style. But at the same time, they also know like the pain that can come with a relationship, so they keep it away, kind of like a dismissive attachment style. It gets very confusing. And like I mentioned earlier, that I used to have anxious attachment style. Now my attachment style is fearful avoidant attachment style, which is this one. And that only happened after, if you've never seen the first video on my channel, I'll link it below, my narcissistic abuse situation that I was in. And I think that was the first time that I actually woke up and smelled the coffee and was just like, wow. So there are people who literally are out here deceiving people to the point of like purposely hurting them. Like, it never dawned on me that there are some people who get a kick out of like making you fall in love and then snatching it from you. I didn't know. Like, I knew there are bad people in the world, but like that kind of made me really view people in a negative light. So I went from like loving being in a relationship, like in terms of anxious attachment, and being like, oh, like I want a relationship so bad, to being like, maybe I don't want a relationship, so like I know the value of it now, but I also want to keep people away from me. People with this attachment style usually have a low self-esteem. They want their sense of self to come from their partner, but at the same time they feel like that's weak, so then they don't go seeking a partner. It's like I said, it's really confusing. In the description box, I'll explain it better down below. But yeah, it's very much like a push and pull with these people. And the last relationship I was in, the guy actually had this attachment style, this fearful avoidant attachment style. So it's like he wanted to be in a relationship, you could tell, and like he wanted to be close to someone, but it took a while. Like, it took a while to actually get into one. And then once we were in it, it was a bunch of back and forth. It was a bunch of like, oh my God, I love you so much. Oh, no, get away from me. Like, it was a bunch of like push and pull because, yeah, we were both like juggling this combination of I want you, I don't want you, I need to be alone, no, I need to be with you. Yeah, I hope that's making sense. So I guess the best way I can sum it up is this. People with fearful avoidant attachment styles, they rely on their partners. Like, they are dependent on their partners once they're in love. And for that reason, they will try to stay away from love. So just a quick recap, or just like a quick overview of each one. With a secure attachment style, a person has a positive view of themselves, a positive view of others, and they are able to enter healthy relationships with very low anxiety and very low toxicity. With dismissive avoidant attachment style, these people have a positive outlook on themselves, but a negative outlook on other people, and they tend to not want to be in a relationship at all. And when they do get into one, it's sort of to feed their ego, and these people can become extremely abusive towards their partners. With anxious attachment styles, people have a negative view of themselves, but a positive view of their partner, so they will cling on to that partner for their sense of self-worth, and they become fearful that the partner's going to leave, and they've just become very clingy and very needy, constantly needing attention and reassurance. And then there is the fearful avoidant attachment style, in which a person has a negative view of themselves and a negative view of other people. So they're looking for validation in their relationships, but also at the same time they don't want a relationship. So it just causes a messy situation. So that is it. I hope that you were able to identify your attachment style in this video. I will write in the description box below all the signs, just in case I went through this too quickly, so that you can identify yours. And then in the next few videos, I'm going to be getting into each attachment style separately, and talking about how to change each one, how each one is formulated, and basically how to move from the unhealthy attachment styles into a secure attachment style. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that bell, the notification bell, so that you can be notified when I upload these videos. I hope you guys found this helpful, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.